Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to Leading Our Own Way. As you've probably guessed, if you watch my episodes, I have quite a few leadership books, but some in particular from some basketball coaches. I've been playing basketball since the tender age of 10 years old, back in Manchester, UK. Played for a number of different clubs over there, and was able to come over to Australia and be part of a coaching team at one of the clubs here in the in the high divisions, but just under the NBL league. And I made a few connections in my time and made some friends here in Australia. I'm lucky enough to interview today the voice of Melbourne, aka Wayne Peterson. The voice of Melbourne is a very well-known commentator. He has commentated for the NBL team. They've won a few titles. Melbourne United. He's been around the game for many, many, many years. He grew up with a good friend, Mr. Andrew Gaze, who won an NBA championship with the San Antonio Spurs. But the voice of Melbourne has been involved with the Melbourne team for decades, and he currently announces for Melbourne United, as I've just mentioned, but they were formerly known as Melbourne Tigers. They've been around for quite a long time. He goes into some of the ups and downs of his commentating career, struggles with voice health, and also, just struggling with some of with comments that have even been made in the modern day, and how he's had to deal and navigate his feelings around being careful in speech, and in speaking in that capacity. We don't think about this, do we? And it's good to have Wayne on today because we get to hear that side of things. We never think about that, and it's fascinating. Anyway, he also announced at the 2000 Olympics here in Australia. He did the gold medal game, USA versus Lithuania. Oh, I mean, imagine that. Just absolutely imagine that. And it wasn't just that. He's also done pre-games for the Boomers versus USA prior to the Olympics as well. But not just that, he got to announce at the Olympics. Just phenomenal. But outside of sport, he had to deal with bullying and growing up in the quite a poor area at the time of Port Melbourne. It's not quite the same anymore, but back in the day, big difference. Some of the challenges there he will talk about as well. We talk about the significance of friendships and connection, and it's just I think we need to interview people like this a little bit more often. Not just the former athletes as well, professional players themselves, but the people around, the staff around the professional sport. Anyway, it's a fascinating interview, and I absolutely adore Wayne. We've built up a bit of a relationship since, and he was kind enough to let me go courtside and get my son to meet some of the players. So thank you to that. Thank you for that, Wayne. I really appreciate it. But on with the episode. We've got my cool intro for 21 seconds. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Oh, don't forget, subscribe and follow if you don't already. Appreciate it, you guys. See you in a second. Welcome to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White, and this is the podcast that unveils captivating narratives of resilience and personal triumph. This podcast is for anyone seeking inspiration and insights on overcoming life's challenges. Follow and subscribe, and then we can lead together forever. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Leading Our Own Way. We are into our series now, and I'm so excited. We've got the voice of Melbourne visiting us today for the episode. I'm so excited to have you here, Wayne. How are you, mate?
Mate, great. It's always a bit weird when people say we've got the voice of Melbourne. It's funny how you can self-title yourself, especially on social media, and it stuck when I decided to hashtag the voice of Melbourne. It actually stuck, which is it's pretty weird, but it's good.
Mate, I love it. And so did you create that name, the voice of Melbourne?
Oh, one of my friends might have said it, oh, you're the voice of Melbourne. And I said, okay, I'll take it. So, voice, Melbourne United. I do a little bit of footy. So it stuck around. I started an Instagram and away we went.
Love it. Well, what a great way to start, actually. So for those who don't know the voice of Melbourne outside of Melbourne or outside of Australia, can you tell everybody who the voice of Melbourne is?
Well, it's a guy that's just been battling and chipping away at basketball for about 34 years as the announcer for Melbourne Tigers, originally now Melbourne United in the National Basketball League. Yep. And an offshoot of that is I also work at Marvel Stadium as the ground announcer for every event at Marvel, but mainly, about 40 to 50 AFL games a year, and do ground announcing for the AFL. So yep. Marvel Stadium, basketball, I've done a list that could go on and on and on, but they're my two passions and the two things that have got me to where I am today.
Love it. Well, for those who don't, outside of Australia, and I'm only saying this because I didn't know what it stood for before I arrived here, but AFL is the Aussie Football League, the Australian Football League.
That's right. Yeah.
That weird sport where you get a point for missing.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Hit the post point. Yeah, all those things, that ball that floats through the air and doesn't bounce right. Yeah, I've heard them all, mate, though. Bring them on.
I've got my own name for you. I don't know if you've heard of this one before, but I'm going to call you Wayne the Voice Peterson. Does that have a bit of a ring to it?
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, lock it in, Eddie. We can run with that.
No, we'll stick with the voice of Melbourne. Okay, so you have been commentating for, which was Melbourne Tigers for a long. So how long roughly? 33 years, is it?
91 was when I first basically started as the announcer. I was involved with the club previously, helping out on game night and doing a few things. But 91 was when they moved from the Glass House, which people in Melbourne would know was a venue that's now the Collingwood Football Club's training base. And we moved across the road to Rod Laver Arena when basketball was massive. It took a little bit of a downward dip, but now it's getting back massive again. But yeah, so 15,000 people we used to pack into Rod Laver Arena back in those days. So yeah.
Yeah, wow. Just quickly, why did they go from Melbourne Tigers to Melbourne United?
Just quickly, it's not something I can answer with that one, Andy. It's it was a branding thing, and it was also, if you know basketball in Victoria mainly, we have so many junior competitions and junior leagues all over the place. So we go around suburbs, you'd be familiar with Geelong and how many junior leagues there are there. There's Nunawading, there's the West Side, St Kilda, there's Coburg, and all those teams back in the day had a junior following and an NBL team. So the Melbourne Tigers juniors would play against all these other teams, and then on a game night for the NBL, we would ask them, the other teams, the Coburg Giants and things, to come along and support the Melbourne Tigers in the National Basketball League. Mm-hmm. And that was like asking someone to support a team that had just beaten them on a Friday night. So I think Larry Kesselman decided that needed to be left as a junior conglomerate and leave all the junior clubs, and then we create a National Basketball League team that everybody can come and support. And then the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix came on board, and now we have two teams. We used to have 6 or 7 teams, NBL teams in Victoria, and now it's down to 2, but it will grow in the future.
Yeah, wow. Amazing. You just taught me something there about the history of the sport in Melbourne. So what would you say is the biggest event you've ever, commentated at, would you say?
I was extremely lucky to be invited and asked to go and work at the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. And
amazing.
There was a couple of announcers that were up there, and we went through all the qualifications, and we did, and then I was chosen to be the announcer at the gold medal game for the Sydney 2000 Olympics. So USA, Lithuania, and that was a dream come true. That was amazing.
So how did it feel to mention some of those names that are playing, not just for, we have to go to the USA team, don't we, I suppose. How did it feel to say some of those names that were on that squad that year, but them hearing it too?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Well, actually, I got a little bit of a pre-opportunity because they played a pre-event down here in Melbourne. Yeah. So the Boomers played USA Dream Team down here in Melbourne before they went to the Olympics. So we had a pre-game down here, so I got to do that game and then head up for the Olympics. But just calling the Olympics as a whole, not just the USA team, all the international teams was special. I was so lucky to be able to stay right there in the Olympic Village at the Novotel. We got put up inside the Olympic Village and worked every second day. So every day off we were going to other events and watching the water polo gold medal, and we were walking around the venue, the Olympic Village. It was unbelievable. It was an experience that I'll never forget. I've still got the uniform from the Sydney Olympics, the nice blue. I've actually got it in a tub in the garage. I might get that out. I should have got that out and did a costume change. Sorry about that, Andy. I did that.
No. You can get it out later. We'll do a pause, and if you've got the opportunity to bring that and show the hopefully the world that will watch this, mate, I'll pause it for you, and we'll go and get it. Just let me know when we don't want to do it.
No worries.
That's awesome. Yeah. You said about you were lucky enough. I think you created that look. You led your own way in that respect, because you wouldn't have got there if you hadn't put yourself in the position to do what you're doing right now. So that's what I believe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. There's no luck about it. I do believe in creating your own, paving your own way and creating your own look. A little bit of background between us then, how we met. For those, if you do remember, about 6-7 years ago, I got you guys out to my primary school where I taught at the time. We organised the Harlem Globetrotters to come and jump in at half time between a Melbourne United versus my grade 5 and 6s. You guys put on one special event, and I suppose I just kept bugging you ever since. It was a great connection, and we had such a great event at that school, which I'm sure you've done at many different schools. But that I just wanted to paint a picture. That's how we met. I actually brought my family courtside to the USA versus Boomers, and you guys came over and you got the camera on my little boy Drew, and it was amazing. One special day for us as well. So I appreciate you making that.
Can I just say that that promotion that we did at your school is, and we've done many schools, and it's now called the Kmart Game Time promotion, where most clubs, I think all NBL clubs, go out to schools and do it. We do it the best. Melbourne United do it the best, because we take, the PA system. We have me, the announcer. We have competitions, and it is the greatest professional sports promotion involving kids that I've ever been involved in. Where else would a professional team that plays in the national competition go out to a school and play in a game against grade 5, 6s, grade 3, 4s, 5, 6s in an actual game on their court? I don't know where else that would happen.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And, all of those little details around what you organise with T-shirts and bags for every child in the school, not even the ones that even didn't play. We had ice cream for every kid in the school.
Buller. We love Buller.
Buller, yeah. Special shout out to Buller as well. It was amazing. It was one of my highlights of my career, actually, being a part of that setup with one of the parents. She did a lot of the work, but just the fact that I was a part of that setup, it was just brilliant. Loved it. All right, awesome. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's go back to where you grew up and your childhood, and let's try and paint that path moving forward so we can begin with the end in mind. Go back. You take us far where you want to go with us to your childhood. I believe you grew up in Port Melbourne. As if I know correctly, Port Melbourne now is quite an up-and-coming place. Yeah, an up-and-coming place. You've got nice buildings. I cut through there on the way back from MSAC back to where I live now when I play there. And it's the port. You've got the cruise ships coming in. You've got the beaches, nice apartments, and so on. What was it like for you growing up in Port Melbourne?
Well, where you say you cut through, that development was never there. That was called Beacon Cove now. They used to be a place where they stored fuel and diesel and oil in massive tanks on the land, and the ships would come into Station Pier and they would offload the fuel, and then that would go from there. That got developed many, many years ago. They actually said that they were pulling it all down and they cleaned all that soil. I still don't believe that they actually cleaned it. But then that development was built, and that made Port Melbourne. That's when it took off. But when I was growing up there, my dad worked on the wharf, and back in the day where it was a hard job. He worked really hard. He played hard. He drank hard. It was a knockabout place. I had friends from other areas that wouldn't come to Port Melbourne because they thought it was a little bit too rough. Right. It was the rough side of town. It was before people realised living next to the water is really cool. That wasn't the case back then, and I didn't realise that because I would have bought 3 or 4 houses and would be sitting on a pretty profit right now. But it was a tough neighbourhood. I played in football, I played cricket, I played baseball, and and it was tough, but I still have friends that I played with back in the day that I see now, and we still have that bond of growing up in Port Melbourne. In that, its nickname was Baghdad. People used to call it Baghdad. It was.
Oh, really?
It was. It wasn't
Baghdad?
that. Well, I don't think it was that bad. I grew up there, and I've come out okay.
Yeah.
But people didn't talk highly of Port Melbourne back in the day. Now, very trendy. It's a cool place to live. But it was always a battle. I had 5 older sisters. We were in Housing Commission, which is public housing, I suppose you can call it if people don't live in Australia. So Housing Commission.
Yeah.
My mum worked 3 or 4 jobs. We were all living in the same house, a very small house. My dad, as I said, worked hard but drank hard. Was an alcoholic. Didn't really live the life of a father while I was growing up. Was sort of there but not really there. But my mum worked hard, battled hard, and brought up 6 kids, and we were all doing quite well. And it was a tough childhood, but a good upbringing.
Was that why your mum worked 3 to 4 jobs though? Because your dad might have worked hard, but then I'm only projecting here, spending the money on the alcohol.
Absolutely, absolutely. He'd go from work, and back in the day, they had I remember going down to work with him at times, and they had a fridge full of beer at the work site. Oh. So they would work hard, they would unload ships, containers, and then they would drink. And then he'd come home, he'd have something quickly to eat, and he would go down to the pub, and he would be there until he got extremely drunk, and then he would come home. He wasn't violent, he wasn't angry, he was just a drunk, just an alcoholic, and he drank all his money away. And my mum worked hard just to make sure that we had clothes on our body and shoes on our feet.
I was going to ask, was there any violence or domestic abuse or anything like that?
No.
That usually is the stereotypical route, isn't it, for most? Yeah. But he was just an absent father. He was an absent father. But did that change over time with your relationship with him as you got older, or was it the same going forward?
It changed a little bit because I was able to. My mum eventually asked him to move out, and he moved into the pub upstairs, just down Port Melbourne near Station Pier. Actually, it's not there anymore, but there was a pub on the corner there, and so I would ride my bike from home, ride along the beach, and go and see my dad and sit with him at the pub, and say good day to him there. And it's funny because I never drank alcohol until I was 27 years old, so I grew up with it and I was around it, but I'd never touched a drop of alcohol until I was 27.
Wow,
so
I mean,
it was something.
even if you're not affected by that, usually you would probably still start early, just being one of the boys, I suppose.
Yeah, I was a designated driver. All the boys used to have a crack, all the fellas I played with. But I always used to make sure people got home safe, drive them home. Yeah. My mum and dad were heavy smokers, and I've never touched a cigarette ever. Never attempted to try smoking ever, so I'm proud of that too.
It's funny. When I first came to Australia and was involved with basketball in 2008 here, we'd go out with some of the boys, and you were allowed to drive. You were allowed to have an open beer at the side of the drive. Like, what? I couldn't believe it, because in England you can't do that. But the guys would just have a beer, as long as you didn't go over the limit. It was fine. Yeah. I don't know if that was right, if they were lying to me. You guys have lied to me about drop bears and rolling snakes and stuff, so I don't know.
No, I think that it only come in. Yeah, we didn't have the open bottle rule. It's only come in actually not that long ago. But you had to be, under the limit, which didn't come in. I can't remember when that came in either. That seemed to be a while, because a lot of people drove drunk around, but then they brought in the .05 and but the open bottle thing, I can't remember that being a law.
All right, so they might have lied to me then. I don't know. So you obviously sought connection with your dad by riding to the pub. I think every boy wants to connect with their father in some shape or form, right? How was it when you were at the pub with him drinking? I mean, you didn't touch alcohol, but you enjoyed those times with him?
Yeah, and I still know the publicans today. I still the guys that ran the pub. Back then, it was most pubs had a publican, which was a family that ran each pub. Now they're run by big organisations and corporate gigs. But most pubs around Port Melbourne had a publican in each pub, which owned the pub and ran the pub, and you knew who they were, and they knew who I was. So, I'd just go in there and sit at the bar. They knew I wasn't drinking, and just, sit with my old man and chat to him, and then he'd go up to his room and go to sleep and go to work the next day. He was occasionally there at football. When I played junior football, he would be there at times. But my most thoughts are him being actually drunk, not not there in the moment.
Because the negative part of our emotion growing up, or even as an adult, that we tend to, our brain tends to go that side of things, doesn't it? We always seem to remember the negative, the trauma side of things, opposed to the qualities. I'm sure you can highlight the qualities of your father, of course, but you've highlighted those parts because it's affected you in some shape or form. What about your sisters? 100%. You've got 5 girls. You've got 5 sisters. There were 5 girls in the house. Do you have 5 sisters and your mum, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your 5
older,
sisters were all older. Were they affected by the alcohol? Your dad not being the same as you, or?
It's hard to tell. I'm not 100% sure. We all seem to get along and have fun, and I haven't really spoken to them at that length about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether they did or not, or whether they just let it go and just mum was the driver. She was the one that kept everything together, made sure everyone was okay.
And was sport in your life at this point? Around this time as well.
Time,
you played, yeah. What sports did you play when you grew up?
Oh, everything. I was a member of the Lifesaving Club, which was across the road. We lived right sort of on the beach, so I'd go across there. Played baseball, junior football, played cricket for a little while. I didn't get into basketball till a bit down the track because it was a little bit further away, and I had trouble sort of getting to places. I could get to the football ground because I could ride my bike there, and then if we played an away game, I could jump in someone else's car, whether baseball or footy, and I always got to the away games. Basketball, getting down to Albert Park Stadium was a little bit harder. It was a little bit further away, so I never got into basketball until I was a little bit older, but always played junior sport. That was a massive thing.
Isn't it funny how life turns out, the sport that you weren't so much involved with, and now look what you're doing.
Well, the story evolves, and we go into secondary school, which is high school, and I'm in class with a girl called Janet Gaze, and her brother is Andrew Gaze, and he's 1 year lower, and we go through school as sort of friends, but once school finishes, we become really good friends.
So, for those who don't know who Andrew Gaze is, I've got a picture of you and Andrew. I'm going to show it to the camera now for people to see. Who is this gentleman?
He's not that old. He had grey hair in high school, so he looks a bit old, but he's not that old. That guy right there is one of I call him the greatest basketball Australia's produced, and now there's all types of arguments. It's like the LeBron and Jordan thing. There's all types of arguments on how you qualify and what the rules are. That guy right there did more for Australian basketball than anyone has ever done. He always played for his country. He played in the National Basketball League. He did play in the NBA. He played with Seton Hall in the college. He was responsible for getting them to the NCAA final, which was then the first American basketball game that was televised live back to Australia. First ever. Wow. Before we used to get NBA on VHS tapes. We couldn't get it any other way. Yeah. He was responsible for bringing that game, the Seton Hall game, and they got beat in that final. Glenn Rice hit a 3, which wasn't pretty, and they lost the final. But he was responsible for that. He played with the Spurs. He averaged 40 in the National Basketball League. Now, I say that, and people go, pardon? And I say, yes, he averaged 40. His average points per game were 40 in one season. He led the scoring 15 times. He was 7-time MVP. He's unbelievable. He shot the lights out. He was the second leading scorer at the Olympic Games. There's so many accolades that come with Andrew Gaze. It's not funny.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And he's a great bloke.
He's a good person.
Absolutely.
And he's a good friend of yours still to this day.
Yeah, he was in my wedding. I was in his wedding. We're fairly close.
Beautiful. So you went to high. You said he was a year below you. You were close to his sister, and you grew up
Yep.
with him. You just saw the growth from him from such a young age. Then,
Unbelievable.
yeah,
It's funny how girls always play a role. So I just look over the top because my wife's sitting at the kitchen table doing some work. So I'm about to tell a story about one of my first girlfriends. But
sorry.
she already knows, she said. But so I started going out and I was playing junior football, and there was a family that there was lots of them, the McBroom family, and I started going out with one of the daughters of this family. Big football family, so we would go everywhere together. We would travel. They had a little bongo van everywhere we're going. We'd jump in, we'd go with the McBrooms, and I started dating the daughter. And then they were involved in basketball. They put the Port Colts basketball together. So I started playing basketball at Albert Park, and that's when I started rehashing my friendship with Andrew and saying, well, I went to school with this guy, and how's this guy playing here, and I'm playing here, and we're getting along and chatting, and that's how we become close as friends.
Yeah, wow, amazing. And you said you mentioned he played in the NBA for the Spurs. What years was it? What years was it?
He only went there 1 year, 1999, and they won the NBA championship that year. That was
so the 1 year he's in the NBA, he wins the championship.
Yeah.
Well,
yep.
I got a little one here. I'm going to show to the camera again.
That's unbelievable. That
I'm
photo
glad Flex came
there
up.
is unbelievable. That's Steve Kerr. I don't. People probably know he played with the Chicago Bulls and with the Golden State Warriors and with the San Antonio Spurs. Or coached the Golden State Warriors. Played with the San Antonio Spurs in the championship. And that's big Will Perdue, who was the center, one of the centers for the Spurs. And that's actually in the locker room of Madison Square Garden immediately after they won Game 5 and won the NBA championship. It was funny. Andrew was playing and we were communicating at times, and his wife Melinda was over there with him, and she'd had enough and she wanted to come home. So she flew back home, and Andrew said to me, do you want to come to the States and watch the finals? I said, I'm there, mate. Just get me on a plane. And off I went. I flew into New York City. I met this fantastic family, this guy on the plane, started talking to him, and he said, I'll give you a lift, man. I'll give you a lift. And he got his wife to drop me off at Andrew's hotel in New York City. Yeah. And the next night they went on to win the NBA championship. And I was in the crowd. It was really funny, actually. I had 2 tickets and I only used one. And then the team manager gave me another 2 tickets. So I actually had 3 tickets available. I went outside the venue to try and just give them away or something. And there was all these announcements saying, if you are scalping tickets, you will go immediately to jail. I'm thinking, imagine if I got caught handing the tickets over, they thought I was scalping them. And then, so I just put those tickets in my pocket and went back into the stadium and never used them. And then the game finished. Everyone went in the locker room, and Will Perdue was walking in, and he looked up and he saw me in the crowd. And he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I can't get down. He goes, come here. And I went down to the barricade, and he basically lifted me over the barricade and took me into the locker room, and spraying champagne and wearing those T-shirts and having photos with NBA stars was next level.
What a great story. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I can't believe it happened.
Again, just brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. But you know, it's funny because Steve Kerr got 3 championships from 96, 97, 98, and then waltzes into the Spurs and gets a 4th in a row.
Yep. Hit a couple of shots too. Did his thing, hit a couple of shots.
Yeah.
And one night we were out at we ended up going back to San Antonio, and they headed back there and they did their big celebration, and we're out at a nightclub and just celebrating, and we're back in the car, and we ended up back at Steve Kerr's house and celebrating, and he's drinking and putting on his jersey saying, I can't get it out of my head. And it's next level. I racked my brain and said, did that actually happen? That actually happened.
Yeah. Love it. What a great story. Thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's go back to it though. You're at school. childhood with your father and the family and so on. Was there any other things that you encountered in school time? Through that being in Port Melbourne. What else went on in your childhood? Just paint a picture there for me.
I'll paint a picture. Just look at the picture and have a look at me. I'm a little bit different. I have what they call they call it a birthmark. And kids, actually had a kid, actually Lauren Jackson's son, last night at the game, came up to me. I was shooting around and before the game, and he just come up to me. And kids are really cool the way they handle it. They just come and go, "What's that?" And I explained that it's a birthmark. It was there since I was a little baby, and it's been there 59 years. How old do you think I am? And they're, are you 59? Yeah, yes, I am. And I talk to kids and I ask them to touch it. Don't touch it. It's okay. It's just so I always make sure I answer the kids. But growing up in school, it's probably best that we didn't have social media. But kids are brutal.
Yeah.
And even to this day, they're brutal. I didn't like physical fighting that much, but there were times when it was necessary, and it was the only way of getting out of a situation that I was in. So it was, you got taken down, you got belittled, but you worked your way out of it, and at times it became a physical encounter that you had to deal with.
Yeah, that must have been hard for sure.
It was tough times.
I mean, it's obviously stayed with you, but how has it affected you? Has it motivated you? Did it ever send you down a spiral? How did you deal with that?
No, not when I was younger. There's been a few times, in my mature years that it's taken me down a little bit. But when I was younger, I think it got me the confidence to go up a notch. And, the only way I can handle this is if I show more confidence than anyone else around me. So if I take it to another level, I disregard what anyone thinks or sees, and I just be confident, loud, sometimes aggressive, but lead the way, and that's what I've done. And with the announcing as well, just show confidence. There are times when I'm going into things and I am absolutely scared. When you say, "Here you go, you're going to call the gold medal game of the Sydney Olympics." What? Hang on a second. And the guy goes, "Go," and you've got to announce the team. I am absolutely pooping myself, mate. But I think I learnt that from a young age. Confidence will get you there. Just overpower, think positive, and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good that you can. I think that's what we need to do more of, though, is show our vulnerabilities, and that's exactly what you've just done there. Is create, and I hope you felt safe being vulnerable in that scenario to share that, because I think we need to spread that to the world a little bit more, and that's partly the reason why I'm doing this, because we need to create safe spaces for people to feel vulnerable, and then not crush them for being vulnerable, and embrace it and lift them. And perspective and empathy is for me the defining factor of connection. So yeah, thanks for being vulnerable there. I that's, hopefully people can take something from that.
No problem.
Okay, so you're at school. When did you start to get into basketball then?
Probably right towards the back end of school. So, 16, 17 years old. Found sort of basketball as being somewhere to and earn a little bit of money. I was a referee. So you could get your $5 a game, and you could do your 5 games and make you $25 cash and have a little bit of pocket money. And hang on a second, if I do that 3 nights a week, I've got $75 cash. I'm living large. So I found that real quick. I was one of the greatest refs going around. I still am a great ref, even though I don't do it.
The rules have changed now, though. If I was to ref, I'd be calling that landing foot a travel when that zero step is. I'd be calling that a travel. Like, no, there's no zero step.
100%. But no, I found the community of basketball a really good one. I still had the football and I still had the baseball, but that seemed to be, go to training and go to the game and go home. With the basketball, you go to the stadium, you can be there for 8 hours. Go after school. You're there at 3:30, and you don't go home till 10:30. You're there half the whole night. Make a little bit of money, play some games, hang out with some friends. Fantastic.
Yeah, I lived the same life in a place called Reddish, Stockport. I refed Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday was the first game was at 8:30 in the morning. The last game was at 8:10 at night. I was there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. I'd come out with, I don't know, £45
And go,
back in the year 2000, 2001 and 2000 up to it was just my life. I lived at the basketball centre.
Yeah.
Loved it. And our owner was actually from Cranbourne, believe it or not. Ian Loxton. Have you ever heard of Ian Loxton?
No.
He owned our centre in the UK. Anyway,
Really?
And actually, that's why one of my first guests actually worked for him, and that's how I got to interview him on here. You'll see that in the future. But so refereeing, did you play as well domestically?
Yeah, played as much. I actually played with 3 or 4 of the National Basketball League refs.
Cool.
People that know them, old school basketball, Ray Hunt, Billy Mildenhall, Eddie Crouch, Ian Watts. So I played basketball with them on a Thursday night at Albert Park, and then they would call the National Basketball League games, and I would give them as much trash talk as they would give the junior referees on Thursday night.
Hypocrites.
And I had a coffee with Ray Hunt just recently at Barwon Heads. He's just moved up to Queensland, actually. He's left his place in Barwon Heads. He's now living in Queensland. So I had a coffee with him at Barwon Heads a week ago, and it's great to catch up with the old school guys and talk hoops. But yeah, I lived it. I played it. I volunteered for the Melbourne Tigers. I was on the school bench. I did floor wiping. I did whatever it took to be involved in the game. And then I got an opportunity to call my first game. On a Wednesday night at Albert Park, they'd play what they called the Victorian Championships. And so the St Kilda Saints would play the Coburg Giants, would play the Melbourne Tigers, Ngunnawal Inspectors, Geelong Supercats. And the guy used to do, there was a little tiny announcer's booth opposite the school bench up at this court, the old Albert Park Stadium. It was an old shed. And Bruce Palmer, who came out as a player for the Melbourne Tigers, eventually coached championships with the Coburg Giants, the North Melbourne Giants. He was the announcer. And about 2.5 games in, he used to kick the beer cans out of the little box and they'd fall down the stairs. He used to have a little tipple while he was announcing and say some of the funniest things an announcer would ever say. And eventually they said to him, Bruce, you need to probably take a break. And this one game he was away and they said, Wayne, would you be able to do it? Bruce can't make it. So I said, I'll give it a crack. And that's where it sort of started, my announcing career for $7 a game on a Wednesday night at the old Albert Park Stadium.
You were bringing more money in refereeing.
I was. I only got 21 over the whole night, and I got more refereeing. That's true. But very funny.
So that was the entry point into your career as a commentator. Did that become, obviously, well, that was the first game. It didn't become weekly. When did it start to become a little bit more common for you that you would commentate a game after that opening?
Yeah, no, it sort of became weekly, and then it was funny. A player that played with the Tigers, Nigel Purchase, played 300 games, was a hell of a passer, good defender, has the record for the longest ever basket in the National Basketball League. Just inside the baseline at one end, he did a hook shot and it went in. They replayed that not that long ago on one of the coverage. So Nigel holds that record. He does hold the record too for the only 3-point basket to be shot by an opposition player. He was falling out of court and he passed the ball behind his back and it went in the ring for the opposition. You can't do that anymore. You can't get a 3 anymore. But at that stage, it was counted as a 3. But his dad was the announcer for many, many years, and it was the time when they were moving from the Glass House and they were going to Rod Laver Arena, and his dad decided that was time for him to retire. Right. So they didn't come to me at first. I said I'd like to do the announcing, and they said, well, we think we're going to try and get someone that's on radio, that's got a radio voice, and we think that's what we need at Rod Laver Arena. I said, okay, no problem. I said, I think that you should send that person down to me on a Wednesday night and have him do a game on a Wednesday night, just to make sure that he can actually, one, he knows the game, and two, he can announce the game, because it is a different thing, just walking in and grabbing a mic and announcing a basketball game. You might be able to sit at a radio station and say, welcome to 91.5 FM. We've got Bonnie Tyler who's going to sing a song right now. So you might be able to do that, but you may not be able to announce a basketball game. So they did. They sent this guy, Steve, who was a lovely fella. He came down on a Wednesday night, and I said, well, I'll give him the first quarter of the Melbourne Tigers were playing someone, can't remember who it was. Leonard Copeland was playing, and I got a bit worried when we were doing the pre-game, and Steve said to me, what's that half-circle ring just above the keyway? I said, that would be the three-point line. He wasn't too sure of that rule, so I was a little bit worried.
Yeah.
But I said, here's the mic, take it away, do the first quarter. They threw the ball up. The centre tapped it. Leonard had a breakaway and dunked it off the tip. And Steve said on the mic, 2 points, Leonard Copeland.
Oh.
And Copes looked up at the announcer's booth because he knew I was up there, as if to say, what? What was that? I just dunked it and he gave me nothing.
Yeah.
And I let him go through the quarter. Then I took over the rest of the game, and then they came and said, no, he's probably not going to be what we need at Rod Laver. Would you be prepared to do the first quarter of the first game, and then Gary can do the next three quarters, just to make sure that... I said, no, let me do the first game. Just give me the first game. Let me get through the first game, and then you guys decide whether I can do it or not. And that was 33 years ago.
Wow. What a great way to... It's odd that you would even think about doing it in quads, because surely the perception from the crowd, why we keep changing it? Is he throwing up in the bathroom? Is that why you need to change commentators? Do you know what I mean? Is he gone home sick? Yeah. I mean, that might happen, but you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But what a good... I'm glad you stuck up for yourself and was pretty... had a bit of faith in yourself and going, hell no, give me the game and let's go. And if it's not working after that, cool. Yeah,
I said, I don't want to do the first quarter and then sit aside. That looks like I'm on trial. Just give me the game. Let me have a go.
Brilliant. See? Leading your own way, Wayne.
Lead your own way. Have a crack, get out in front, and just have a crack and go for it.
Yeah. Loved it. Love it. Absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, so you've been doing that. You've been at the Marvel Stadium for 20 years, is that right?
Yeah, about 20, coming up to 20, I think it is.
And for those who, again, don't know it, Marvel Stadium is one of the big stadiums in Melbourne. We have a lot of sports complexes here in Melbourne, from tennis to... How many different arenas do we have? We've got Marvel.
Oh, wow. Well, the tennis area with Rod Laver and John Cain and those venues.
That's John Cain, yeah.
That's an amazing sports precinct. But basically, we've got the MCG, which is one of the greatest stadiums in the world. And they built Marvel Stadium at the Docklands near Melbourne City, and that's got a retractable roof, which I love. I think it's one of the greatest stadiums to go and watch sport that you can. It's close to the action. I'm just
going to show that picture. Sorry, a bit of reflection there. I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep it down there because it's got reflection. But sorry, Wayne, carry on.
Yeah, it's close to the action. It's a fantastic venue. It's my home, and I will spruik it up as much as I can because I think it's a great stadium. You'll go, we play AFL in wintertime, and it'll be raining outside and hailing, and you'll go there and you'll see a dry weather game of football. And, you'll get 50,000 in there and everyone will be dry and watch a great sporting event. So I think it's one of the greatest stadiums going around. I'm lucky enough, and it was through my basketball contacts actually, a guy that used to manage Rod Laver Arena got the job as managing Marvel Stadium, and he called me up, and their announcer had moved on to other things and gone to Channel 7 It had only been open a couple of years, and he said, "Would you like to come across and be a ground announcer at Marvel Stadium?" And I said, "Absolutely." And that's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, wow. So you've gone from doing just only just doing basketball. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it just basketball at that point, and then the Marvel thing came into play, and you got to cover pretty much anything that happens at Marvel? You get to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done a few little things. There've been a few other little sports things that I've done, but once I got to Marvel, it became any event I'm contracted to be there, whether I'm the announcer or not. I still have to be at the stadium for the emergency evacuation situation should it happen. So with AFL, I do announcements at the quarter time breaks and half time, but coming up in February, Pink has 4 concerts at Marvel Stadium, and I'll be there for all 4 of those concerts, sitting there with a radio and a microphone. Should there be an evacuation required, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll do the egress situation at the end of the concert. Please take your time when exiting. Venues, your gates are available. Please exit safely. Have a great time. We'll see you back here again. A few basic announcements like that. But I'll do 60 to 70 events at Marvel Stadium every year.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Love it. Do you have any? So sorry, Melbourne Tigers for 35 years, which is now Melbourne United. Obviously, Marvel for the last 20. Have you got any stories about your voice? I suppose. Have you got any? I don't know, positive stories. Have you got anything that you can share with us regarding your voice? Because you are known as the voice of Melbourne.
I am, but I have a not so positive. I have a story where I thought it was almost over for the voice. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I contracted some kind of, I think it was overuse, but some kind of viral infection, and I was struggling to speak. I listened back to some of the games that I still worked at, and I can't believe I sounded like I sound. I saw all types of specialists. I went to voice coaches. I had cameras down my throat to try and make sure that everything was okay in there. I was doing exercises with straws. Apparently all these singers and people that use their voice a lot do all these voice, and I've never done that. And they said, do you look after your voice? Do you drink lemon tea? Do you take a spoonful of honey before? I said, no, I just go out there and scream and shout and make some announcements. They said, well, that's probably not the way that someone that uses their voice professionally looks after it. You might need to look after it a bit better. So I had about a month off, had some rest, and got it back right. And it's not at 100%, but I know when I'm getting to a level where it's struggling a little bit, and I can back it off and look after it.
Do you, some of those strategies that they mentioned, do you take a little bit more of an active approach with that now? Or?
Yeah, 100%. I do some exercises. I do some humming. Some of these exercises that the voice coaches gave me when I had to go and have some rehab for the voice.
Yeah. That's kind of like me, what I'm experiencing now playing. I have to stretch. I didn't have to used to stretch, and now I can see the young kids looking at me when I'm putting my straps on my calves. They're all laughing at me. And I'm like, oh man, I'm that old dude now. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes. Old age will catch up with you quickly.
Yeah, jeez. I'm going over that threshold where I'm not quite accepting it yet, you know? Okay, so during your career, we mentioned earlier about your childhood and a bit of bullying, going through those early stages of your life. But we've also mentioned in our pre-interview that adults can be a little bit more brutal than kids sometimes.
Brutal. Adults can be brutal. It's happened a few times over the journey. I make no claim. I'm no angel when it comes to court announcing. I am passionate about my team. I will do just about anything to try and help them get over the line. I tend to turn the mic off and communicate with the players and maybe the referees off mic. I've never done anything on mic that is detrimental to the game. But I have had arguments with players off mic. But I also have been the target of, I can't say bullying, but attacks about the birthmark on my face. I've had players make gestures if there's an argument going on. I've had players look at me and rub the side of their face and make a gesture to me about that.
Disgraceful.
Which, yeah, and I've dealt with it. We move on. A couple of players have given the apology. Some haven't. I felt that the league, which has changed now because the league was run by different people back then, I felt that I wasn't supported enough through that. I was accused of being the aggressor, so that's all okay. Because you started, you spoke to them and yelled at them, so that's okay for them to do that, which I still don't think that's okay. But I've dealt with that. We move on, and yeah, it is what it is, and it makes you stronger. You just you just grow from that, and you just realise that those types of people, you never want them sort of in your fraternity or in your life, and they have to deal with how they deal with it. And I'm sure it's affected them at times, probably greater than it's affected me, realising how bad a person that they were at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can relate to that, definitely. Do you think over the last few years then, with that in mind, and those little incidents, no, not little, they're big in your mind, but you've handled it beautifully. Do you think we're going through a time now where we have to watch and have to think about what we say and how we say it? You know?
Absolutely. It's the world has changed dramatically with what you say, how you say it, when you say it, how other people might take it. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I have recently been through a situation that, with those issues in mind, I'll just tell you the story, and everyone can, if you just Google it, you'll find it on the top of Google anyway. But so during our NBL games, we have a promotion which is the greatest promotion in world sport, I think, where if an opposition player misses 2 consecutive free throws, Hungry Jack's, one of the league's great sponsors, will give everyone in the stadium a free cheeseburger, and then they put a code up on the TV, and they give everyone that's got the code, goes into their local Hungry Jack's and can get a free cheeseburger. So we're playing against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, which is the other Melbourne team, and they do not like me. I don't like them, actually, but they don't like me. We're 2 Melbourne teams, and we go at it. They had an import, so teams were allowed imports. They had an import actually from China, and Joe Chi was his English pronunciation. It was probably not the pronunciation in Chinese, but that's how he was announced. He was a 7'2" basketballer with amazing skill. I'm not sure if he's in the NBA right now, but he's definitely on his way there. Who couldn't speak English, didn't speak English, had an interpreter that came out to Australia with him, sat on the bench with him. So we're playing against Phoenix. He goes to the foul line. He missed the 2 free throws. The crowd went crazy because they all got free cheeseburgers. The ball came to a halt down the other end after that play phase, and my producer pointed up to the screen and said, "Can you read out the Hungry Jack's promotion?" And my exact words were, "Burgers for everyone. He probably doesn't understand, but he's just given away free Hungry Jack's burgers." that morphed into a racist comment and led to me being away from the game for 2 games and a few death threats online, people threatening to bash me if they ever saw me at a game, and almost led to me walking away from the sport. It was disappointing because my thoughts, I didn't know that anything had happened until after the game, and someone mentioned to me, the Phoenix aren't happy with what you said. And I said, at what stage? And they said that line, and I said, well, I don't think I've done anything wrong, but I'll call the general manager, Tommy Greer, who I know very well, and he said, yeah, our sponsors and our ownership group aren't happy, and they think you've made a racist comment. And I said, well, you've got to do what you got to do, Tommy, but I don't think I have. But then, once they also sent all the footage to Channel 9, the news outlets got hold of it, and it took off in not the right direction that I thought it would take off in, and got a little bit out of hand. But a couple of good things came out of it that I mentioned. I said to the club that let's put out a press release and just say that, I'm going to step away and have some training and revisit how I work. I said, but I want you to write the exact words into any press release that you put out. So Peterson said he probably doesn't understand, but he's just given away free burgers. And that was one of the best things I did, because that ended up in every news article, and even on Channel 9 News, they put that as a subtitle underneath. And I had people then calling me saying, is that it? Is that what you said? And is that why you're sitting out? And I said, yes. I've been to China maybe 7 times on basketball tours. I have friends that are still there, and I was contacted by a friend in China and said it's actually made the news over here, but we have no issue with it at all. No one in China has any issue with what you said. We don't think it's racist, so we support you 100%. But it was just one of those things that I think the opposition team had a chance to take me down, and the way the world is these days, if people have that opportunity, sometimes they'll take that and try and take you down.
What do you think the reason would be to try and take you down? Is there anything in the past that you have brought up to your brain, your memory, or was it?
Can't be much in the past because they haven't been around for too many years. But
no, they haven't. Yeah, that's true.
They haven't. So it's just a personality thing. They don't like what I do. Yeah. A lot of people don't like what I do. People that are on my side love what I do. Some people don't like what I do. I can be a little bit sarcastic at times. As I said, I can be a little bit aggressive off the mic, but that doesn't mean I'm not racist. I've never been there. I've never done that. But that was their opportunity to make that a racist thing. I offered to sit down with the player and their interpreter and sit across the table and say, look, if this has affected you and you've taken it in a way that you think that's a racist comment, I apologise for that. That was not my intention, but they would not allow that to happen. They didn't want that to happen, because I don't even think the player would have even known what the incident was. So they wouldn't allow that to happen. So it is what it is.
So with the channel, I mean, when it went to the Channel 9 news, did they present it without that quote originally? So obviously it was perceived it was out of context completely. No,
they actually, the Phoenix cut all the footage up, and we were told that they sent it to all the media outlets not long after the game. But Channel 9 was Tony Jones, actually. I remember it. I can see it now on the TV. But he said it, and he actually said what I said as well. So he would have had a press release there. He would have had, and they put the subtitles up. So that was said on the news. So that was all good. People saw that and said, is that all you said? Yeah, I had, ex-coaches from interstate call me and say, look, mate, we support you. We know who you are and what you do. It was just a little group that wanted to take me down at the time. A personality thing. They don't like our team. We don't like their team. and that was their opportunity to take me down.
Unfortunately, we can't control what other people think and feel.
No,
That is
we
something
cannot.
I think society is dealing with at the moment. Did that make you? Did that what you mentioned? Well, did it make you want to step away from the game completely, or from
Yeah,
commentating maybe?
I was close. I was talking to people. I had a little bit of counselling actually. Went and spoke to
Mm.
a professional about it, and but then I spoke to my friends, spoke to Andrew, and he said, "Don't let this be the thing that ends your career. Don't do that. Um,
Mm.
get through this. Continue on with what you do, and then decide when you want to leave and how you want to finish.
Mm.
Don't let this take you down." And that was some good advice. So that's what I've done.
Well, we're all glad that you're still in Melbourne, being the voice of
Thanks,
Melbourne
mate.
for sure,
Thank you.
100%. So going forward though, after that, because it stays with us, it's deep within our souls, and it does stick with us. I get it. Is there any? When I've been through certain things like that, when I go down hallways, or from being bullied myself at work, the hallways would trigger me. Meetings and eyes, whatever, flickering, that would trigger me. Did you get any triggers from that? Maybe through promotional, or when you're sitting there and something like that happens that mirrors that scenario?
Yeah,
How does that
100%.
affect you in games?
Yeah, 100%. The first couple of times that the Hungry Jacks promotion that they missed two free throws, I didn't make the announcement, and the producers in my ear saying, "Make the announcement," and I just couldn't do it. I just let it go. I let them put it up on the big screen, and I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it. And now when I do, it's a very brief. Check out the big screen. That's how you get your free Hungry Jacks burgers. That's all I say about it, and
Yeah.
I'll move on. But every time that happens, it takes me it takes me back. But I know in my own heart, my own mind, my intentions were never to be racist, to never to be belittle anyone. It was a throwaway line saying, this player would he's probably looking around going, why are all these people cheering when I just missed two free throws?
Yeah.
He would not have one idea about how that happened, and that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird when you're in like that. It's like you're on eggshells constantly, isn't it, going forward?
100%.
I mean, I know you are very active. I've seen you walking around. I've seen you getting involved with the crowd. But when you're sitting down, it's like you're on the edge of your chair, isn't it? When you're commentating and you can't put that full 100% passion and heart into it because you're worried about how somebody might take something.
100%. I now have to think. I've got to think a lot more about what you deliver, even though you might think it's okay. If one person in that crowd decides that they think that it's gone in a different direction and they make enough noise, that will affect your career and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you've definitely painted some beautiful pictures about your journey in commentary. You have ventured into other parts of your career as well. You've done other side. I don't know. Are they passion projects? Are they something that you just did for investment? What are some of the other things outside of commentary that you've taken yourself down?
Well, I wasn't the smartest tool in the shed back in school days. I got through to
Come on, mate.
year 11. I got through to year 11. I never quite made what we used to call the VCE or matric or whatever it was called. I never quite made that. I wanted to be a carpenter, but I could never get an apprenticeship back in the day. I really wanted to be a carpenter. So, but from there, I've just done whatever it takes. I've worked. If you name a job outside of being a very good teacher like yourself, I've actually probably been a teacher because I've looked after many, many kids at basketball camps and things. But I've done every job that you could probably think of. I've sold ovens, televisions. I've put television in hospitals for people while they were sick. I've done housing developments. I've had a landscape business. I've had 2 Subway franchises. I had a pizza franchise out front of Marvel Stadium, and many, many test and tag electrical franchise. I've tried everything. I've driven buses and trucks, and I'm still driving trucks every now and again, and I still do a little couple of housing developments, which we've got one going at the moment. Should be finished in about a month and on the market in about 2 months. So property's been sort of where is my passion. I love property, and that's what's brought me to 3 or 4 subdivision developments that I've done. So, and I love it.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. And with the Subways and the pizza, the restaurants and things like that, are they with you anymore? Or have you got rid of them now?
No, we had got rid of them. The pizza didn't work. It was a pizza chain from Queensland called Eagle Boys. So Victorians wouldn't have seen that, and they were just the little tiny 6-inch pizzas that we had a little shop out front of Marvel Stadium and thought we'll do event pizzas and we'll sell heaps of them. We did sell a lot of pizzas on event night, but Monday to Friday during the week we sold none. So paying the rent was difficult, so that closed. Yeah. I had the Subway out front of Marvel Stadium for a while, and then I got out of that one, and I had Subway in Clarendon Street, South Melbourne, and I was doing some other things at the time. My wife was working a lot of hours, and we tried to, with Subway, with a franchise system, you can work really hard in the franchise yourself, and if you're going to work 70 to 80 hours and you're going to make reasonable money. How you make really good money is if you have 4 or 5 stores, you amortize managers across all the franchises, you oversee all the franchises, and that's how you make really good money. But there wasn't enough opportunities to open new Subway stores. So someone walked into our store one time. We were actually on holidays in Merimbula, and I had a call from a guy. I was at the RSL. I still remember it today. And he said, "I'm interested in buying your Subway." I said, "Yeah, mate. Okay, I've had a number of these calls." He goes, "No, I'm really interested." I said, "Well, I'm back next week. Meet me at the store if you want." And he ended up buying the store. First price we gave him, he took it. So we probably sold it to him for too cheap. But
yeah.
But we got out of that. Subway's a really good franchise. If you're looking at franchising, it's a really good franchise to get into. They have amazing support. But again, if you want to work long hours yourself, you'll do okay. You need to get 3, 4 or 5 stores and amortize staff and managers across those stores to make really good money.
Yeah, okay. So you're saying you've got to be on, were you inside the shops in the restaurants as well, doing your thing as well? Or
yeah, most of the time. I was there a lot of the time, but then other times I wasn't, and my wife was there. But the times when you get a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, the store's open at 7 and the person's not well, you have to get out of bed and off you go and open the store and bake the bread and make sure it's all ready to go. So, I was involved a lot. When we had the store out front of Marvel Stadium, I took the year off announcing, but then I went back to announcing and had a manager in the store, so that worked okay. But again, it was in a place where it didn't work that well Monday to Friday, but it worked really good on event days.
I didn't know you stepped away for a year. That must have been hard within itself, or was that
really hard?
Did you just fancy a break?
No, it was really hard. I had to make a decision on working hard on making that store successful. I had a partner in the business at the time, so they suggested, that I should step away, and I did, and I worked really hard, and then I thought, I'm doing 80 hours a week here, and I gave up something that I really liked doing, and luckily I put someone in to my role that I could get out again, and they didn't want to do it forever, so I got them out and went back in, and I'm glad I did that.
So was it your business partner that advised you to step away from commentary to do that?
Yes, it was, and I probably won't go into the business partnership.
No, of course, yeah. That's not why we're here. I didn't know that about it, so that's interesting that you did step away. It's just interesting in your thought process behind it, because I know how passionate you are.
Yeah, it was
about being
tough.
The voice of Melbourne.
It was tough,
for sure.
And my advice to people going into partnerships with people and friends is to be very, very careful.
Yeah. Good sound advice. Okay, so you've stepped away from all of that. What would you do in your life if commentary wasn't in your life? What would you have seen yourself doing? I know you've just listed loads of jobs. You probably answer one of those, but what would be your passion outside of commentary in terms of career?
Yeah, it's something in the building industry, construction management.
Yeah.
Ideally, I wanted to be like a carpenter. That would have been something that I really wanted to do. But it'd be something in development or construction that I would have got into. I love sales. I loved it. I really enjoyed sales. I was part of Technica is the brand. So back then they were only the single brand they had was Technica, and I used to sell into all the Good Guys stores. So I used to visit Geelong quite a lot. Used to go down and see Ross Park quite a lot down in Geelong, and I really enjoyed the sales side of things. So sales came fairly naturally to me because, I could talk the leg off a chair. So, I always would get along really well with the store owners, and that's what sales is about. Don't let people try and tell you that sales is about, knuckling down and doing. You just got to be able to talk to someone and be honest and be available when they need you. That's what sales is about. Be there when they need you, because the store owner will piss and moan about something and you just need to say, yes, mate, I'm right on it. I'll get that done for you. And take them donuts a lot.
You've just said it, but connection is everything, isn't it?
Connection is everything. I've instilled that in my kids as well. Make good connections, have good networks, make sure you do the right thing by people that will come back to you. But keep connections solid, keep friendships open, and it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah, totally. People make a joke about, someone said to me once, oh, you're the sort of guy that would meet somebody on a plane and end up being invited to the wedding. And we'd look around and go, yeah, that has actually happened. And that is the person that sent me this mic. Met her on a plane.
That's awesome.
Got invited to her wedding. So, so it's little things like that. And I think you're right. Just being a talkative, normal, authentic. I know we throw around the word authentic probably a lot these days, but it's true. It's being just your normal, authentic self and talking people's ears off. But I mentioned it on another episode, but when I'm walking my dog, some people don't even look up at you.
No.
People don't look at each other anymore, and we need these games to go to every week. And I think you connect deeply with the audience, and I've not been to a game for maybe a year or so, but I'm going to come and see you do your thing on the 18th of February against New Zealand.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm looking forward to hearing you in action. And my little boy Drew is really proud that he's in bed now. He would have sure loved to have popped his head around, but he's really proud that I'm speaking to you tonight. And
awesome.
I'm really appreciative that he did agree to come on Leading Our Own Way. What does the future lie for the Voice of Melbourne now?
Yeah, I've been actually thinking about that a little bit lately, Andy. It's with the other incident that happened, it makes you sort of think about where you're at and where it's all, where it's going to finish. Really, it's been a long journey as it is. The basketballs, it's hard. Like it's you'll see how crazy I am when you come to a game. Recently I've been roaming around a lot more than sitting down. The way the world is these days, it's all about selling sponsorship and selling seats, and the 4 seats beside the score bench where I used to take up one of them, they've sold now, and they sell and they put influencers in those seats. And we all know what influencers are. They're those people that have 1 million followers and can sit close to the action and take photos and post them on their Instagram pages. Well, they sit where I used to sit. So I now have a seat sort of back a little bit in the corner, and I don't like sitting. Nobody puts baby in the corner. So I roam around a little bit and sit courtside sometimes. I'll sit in a corporate box with people. I'll be along the court line. And it's bloody hard work, mate. I need to do recovery once I've finished the game. It's like I've ran 10Ks and worked out more than some of the players have. So
Yeah.
59, going to be 60 next year. I'm not getting any younger. Um, I still love it. I still are passionate. When I lose that passion and love, that's when I'll probably step away. But when that is, I'm not sure. The AFL is a completely different story because that's a job that I just go and sit at a desk in a beautiful office, overlook the stadium and make a few announcements and just watch a sport that I love. So that's a little bit different. I can see myself doing that for another 10 or 15 years. But the basketball, that's... I'm not saying it's close, but it's not far away, I don't think. So if you're ready, mate, I can start training you up.
I was worried. Oh, mate, no, absolutely not. I don't think they'd understand my English accent in that stadium somehow. they'd be like,
I'm surprised they understand me at
cup,
times.
a cup, a cap. I was worried that you were going to announce your retirement on Leading Our Own Way then, and I'd get blamed before I've even broadcasted anything.
No, we won't announce it here, mate. But I'll give you a call, okay?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're not announcing it. I don't want you to be quitting anytime soon. Everybody loves you in Melbourne, and I knew there was an inspiring stories to share, and that's why I reached out, and I'm
Awesome,
grateful that you joined us on here. Wayne, thank you again for appearing on Leading Our Own Way. I really appreciate your time. You've been vulnerable, and I think that's important. The message that I really want to get out to people is it is okay to be vulnerable, and
100%.
for people who are struggling in life, whether it is work, whether it is the things you've been through, some of the things the other guests have been through, you can lead your way out of it, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's something that I learned a few years ago. Only really in the last 2 years I've got my game into play, and I'm trying to I talk the talk or walk the walk, however you want to look at it. And I've worked on the self in order to lead my own way, and I think you have done the same. And for those who do watch this, I hope they can get a nice story from it. And hopefully the people just love good stories as well. I think there's many people can take a lot of learning from your journey. So once again, mate, I really appreciate you joining us on this warm summer's evening.
No problem.
Thank you again.
And just, one of the things that sort of you can take from this is we all have friends, but you need to make sure. I've got a really nice, tight group of friends that we talk about everything, and we, if we're down in the dumps, we know that one of our mates is down a little bit, so we speak and we say, hey, he needs a bit of a lift, give him a call, will you? And let's go and hang out and go and see a movie, or let's go and play some golf, or let's go and do something. But, we all everyone goes through their ups and downs. But, don't be afraid to come out and talk about it. Don't be afraid to throw yourself out there. And it'll just make everything a little bit easier in the long run. It's always going to be tough. It gets really hard at times. But work through that with people around you, and you'll come out the other side better.
Yeah, you just said it perfectly. You don't always need a friend to sit there and give you advice. Sometimes you need to go and just hear, just be heard. Don't even need to answer, just be heard. Or what you said, go and play a game of golf, go and shoot, whatever it may be. Just recognize, being heard, being recognised that you are down in the dumps, and someone just being there for you makes the world a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
On that note, though, how are you now in the present moment? How would you say sum it up? How you are in the moment? I'm
in a really, really good spot. Fantastic.
Yeah,
everything's going really well. Had a surf this morning. One of the things that has grown on me. I've always been a lover of the ocean, even though my pale white skin and about 22 BCCs that I've had taken off by doctors. So do yourself a favour too. Go and get your skin checked, especially if you're pale like me. But I love the outdoors, and I've always loved being involved in surfing. But it was only, I reckon I turned maybe 50 and realised how much I love it. And my love for it has grown. And I'm going to go again tomorrow morning at about 5 o'clock. So I found that passion. So I'm in a really good spot. I've got a nice little van that I've built out that I can sleep in the back if I need to. I've got about 5 or 6 surfboards in the shed, and yeah, no, things are going really well. We've got the development going. Basketball's going well. Melbourne United on top of the ladder. Footy's going to come back soon. Things are good, mate. Things are really good, and appreciate you reaching out as well. We had that connection at the time, and we've always sort of touched base and at different times, and with either a text message or a message here and there saying, "How you going? You're good. You're living here now." And so just touching base like that has been really good. So I appreciate you reaching out, and this podcast. People sit down and talk, and if anyone can get something small out of it, that's we've done a really good job.
Hey, that's very kind of you. And, it's funny you say about the van. I'll put all your information on the show notes. So if anybody wants to follow the Voice of Melbourne, you can
follow
see
the Voice
him.
of Melbourne.
You can see him doing the live videos, making everybody jealous of where he's at, surfing on the cliff views, and your feet are hanging out the back of your van. And yeah, that's hilarious. It's hilarious.
That's it.
So even if you're not into the scenes, just watch him and listen to him talk. It's brilliant.
GBL, Andy. GBL.
Sorry?
GBL.
GBL?
Yeah.
What's that?
Get busy living.
Oh, yes. I like it. I like that. I'll put that in the show notes to remind everybody.
I'm going to put that on a T-shirt. I'm going to put that on a T-shirt and sell them on the Voice of Melbourne Instagram page.
I like it. Well, I will. I'll put all your information on there if anyone wants to follow you and keep track of you. That's awesome.
No problem.
Mate, love it. Thank you for being on one of the episodes in the first season of Leading Our Own Way. To everybody else who is joining us on this journey, on my journey and everybody else's journey, please keep following us, keep sharing everything, and join us on next week's episode of Leading Our Own Way. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening and watching Leading Our Own Way. So we can stay together forever and share more incredible journeys, please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss next week's episode and what that amazing guest has to offer to the world. Please support Leading Our Own Way, and we'll get you on next week's episode.